Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today we bring you SCP Foundation Keter Class Object SCP-2006. SCP-2006 is an anomalous spherical entity that measures roughly 50 centimeters in diameter in its default state. 2006 possesses the ability to change its appearance and voice to any form that it desires. Currently, 2006 has demonstrated a fondness for taking the form of various entities and villains from a number of horror and science fiction movies that it had seen prior to the transformation. The most common form that 2006 embraces is that of Ro-Man from the 1953 movie Robot Monster. SCP-2006 is still capable of speaking even when it possesses the form of an entity that is normally unable to speak. 2006's goal is to evoke feelings of fear and horror in humans. To do that, 2006 will generally attempt to startle or scare any individual it comes into contact with. But after doing so, it will become affable and friendly. SCP-2006 is not good at distinguishing between the various different types of stimuli that can cause fear to humans. Hence, it's constantly searching for new methods in which to accomplish its goal. This poor recognition extends to recognition of emotions in humans, as 2006 is incapable of distinguishing between subtle differences in emotion that otherwise would be much more obvious to a human. With this nature, some SCP personnel have been questioning why SCP-2006 is classified as a Keter entity. So here's an explanation from Site-118 Director Dr. Randall Owings. Although SCP-2006 is not a regenerating super lizard, it does possess the same level of danger as any other Keter that the Foundation has contained. Imagine what would happen if SCP-2006 found out what really scared people. Imagine if it saw the horror and fear of war, or the concepts of paranoia or phobias common to each and every human being. Imagine if it found the true horror of a nuclear holocaust, or an XK-class scenario. Now couple that with an entity that possesses shape-shifting abilities with no known limits, and you'll understand why it's classified as Keter. Currently, SCP-2006 is contained at Site-118 in an airtight containment cell. However, it once broke out of its containment and ventured out into a forest. 2006 trudged through the thick forest, at first annoyed by the mud because it dirtied its clean fur. Then it realized that the mud would only make it seem creepier and scarier than before. It didn't bother dusting it off after this thought. After a few hours, the fearsome beast found itself on solid ground, a sidewalk. 2006 was delighted. A sidewalk always led to houses, and houses always led to chances of scaring the living daylights out of people. After a moment or two of walking, it had found a group of kids. They all wore masks and different outfits. Slowly, it crept up behind them. Boo! The kid in front of him dropped a bag that they had been holding, numerous sweets and confections spilling out. The kid stepped forwards a bit, startled, before staring back at the monster. The child's face was painted a pale white with sharp plastic fangs to match. "Come on, man, you made me drop my candy." "The consequence of your candy dropping bears no match to my power. Be afraid, human," 2006 screamed back, waving its hands in the air and jumping up and down. "Do you know this guy?" questioned another child wearing a Spider-Man costume. "I have no clue. I suppose this is why they tell you about stranger danger." The whole group laughed. "Was I not scary, children? All I want is to be scary." "If that's your job, then you suck at it. Come on, guys, let's get out of here before this guy eats our brains." The kids ran away, fake screaming before loudly giggling amongst themselves. 2006 was devastated. "My whole life is a lie. What will it take to be scary again?" Almost like magic, it heard the words "trick or treat" sound from the group of kids it had attempted to terrorize. It looked down the sidewalk and saw them wait in front of a door, tapping their toes while checking their watches. Eventually, an old woman emerged from the door. "Well, hello, children. Oh my goodness! Aren't you the scariest vampire I ever did see?" To SCP-2006, this sounded like genuine fear. It seemed that the scariest of creatures weren't monstrous beasts, but small creatures, like those children. So SCP-2006 had an idea. It transformed into a small, pale humanoid that resembled a human child. There it stood, completely naked, blood dripping from the mouth with pointed ears, sunken eyes, and sharp claws and teeth. It jumped up and down with excitement before getting on all fours and quickly crawling to the house the kids were at. The crawling creep knocked on the door and hung from above the doorframe. The woman from before came out. "Hello? Anyone there?" "Prepare to face the wrath of demons, puny mortal," screamed SCP-2006, jumping out in front of the woman before giving off a high-pitched screech. The old woman fainted in fright, falling back into the house. There was no response from the lady. "Ha! Frozen in fear, aren't you?" There was still no response. "I'm just gonna go on to the next house, all right? Have a nice day, ma'am." It left the house, the lady still unmoving. It went from door to door, scaring each and everyone in the neighborhood. It finally got to live out its life purpose. Its only purpose, to scare as many people as possible, in the best way possible. Eventually, it sat down on a tree branch to take a break. It had been scaring people for more than 4 hours and had finally grown tired. Just as it was about to lay down and fall asleep, something caught the corner of its eye. It was a house. It was dark, in shambles, and covered in graffiti. 2006 was drawn to it, yet at the same time, unnerved by it. The house seemed to pull it in, almost as if invisible tentacles were dragging it closer and closer to the door. 2006 had no physical reason to be afraid because there wasn't anything that could physically harm it. Yet it could sense something was wrong. Something was utterly terrifying about the house. 2006 thought of the word for it. Dread, perhaps? Maybe unknowing. Unknown. The fear of the unknown. The knowledge of uncertainty. The acknowledgement that anything may happen. In this house, there was no certainty. No knowing of what may happen. It was filled and filled and filled with unknown. And SCP-2006 was afraid. When 2006 walked out of the house hours later, a number of highly armed soldiers, researchers, and field agents have already stand by outside and waiting for it, ready to forcefully contain it. Yet SCP-2006 simply just kept walking. Its form changed back to Roman, and it didn't say a word. It walked into the temporary containment truck along with a number of confused MTF members. Their guns still pointed at the thing at all times, and was driven back to Site 118, eventually contained once again in its cell. As the sun rose on Site 118, this time without a missing anomaly, Site Director Owings and Researcher Loof got together for a meeting. "So Loof, any progress in 2006? "Sir, all it does is sit in the corner of the cell. It doesn't speak, it doesn't move, it won't do anything. In the last 3 hours, we've poked it with sticks, we've played frequencies in the cell that would drive any man mad, and we've shown it numerous bad sci-fi flicks. Nothing can get it to move." "I know it has been difficult, but we gotta keep trying." "Sir, with all due respect, we know SCP-2006 learned something last night. It has evolved, not in the physical, but in the mental sense. It knows that any monster, deity, or what have you can and will become stale. But from what I can guess, it knows that primal fear never evolves. Sir, have you ever seen The Shining?" "Most certainly, yes." "You know that scene where Wendy is going through Jack's papers, all saying the same thing, and Jack is slowly creeping up on her?" "Yes." "Sir, 2006 knows suspense. Lying in the corner, it has become Jack, and we're all Wendy. He knows what he's going to do. He's slowly creeping up on us, while we all scramble around cluelessly and wait. We have no idea what he's going to do. But with all this tension being built up, we know that he needs to release it at some point. We've all feared he'd become a nuclear holocaust, or a large-scale genocide, or something else horrible. But we've never feared that he'd become horror itself." There was a tense silence in the meeting room. Director Owings broke it. Prepare the site for anything. The tension will release any moment.